but not least, we have Steve Slocum. Steve Slocum was a deeply committed evangelical Christian who lived with his family of 5 in Kazakhstan for 5 years as missionaries in the 1990s. When the leader of a missionary team eventually revealed himself as a malignant narcissist, Steve and his family suffered severe religious abuse and trauma, and Steve's son, Andrew, ultimately took his own life. Steve's been reconstructing his life and focuses these days on working towards a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion. He is the author of the award-winning book, Why Do They Hate Us? Making Peace with the Muslim World, and the founder of the nonprofit SalamUSA.org. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here. Yes, I'm unmuted and I'm ready. My spiritual abuse took place over 20 years ago, and I was serving as a missionary. Had my wife at the time, my 3 children there in Kazakhstan. We were very committed. So committed that we felt that we should be reaching out to Muslims to convert them to be Christians. And we took it to the limit. While we were there, the leader of our group we had a very happening scene there. We had lots of people having spiritual awakenings, and it was really a very exciting time. Really numbering in the hundreds. So we got a lot of attention, and the leader was systematically eliminating anyone who caught on to him. And I actually was early in the game and participated. He would always recruit certain ones, promising them promotions, higher positions, etc. And then so I myself participated in an ouster of a family. We just took a family out. We just took them out and ruined their career almost. And I was completely oblivious. Over some time, as this pattern began to be repeated, I started to catch on, and so then it was my turn, and I said, you know what, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm gonna leave this team and do something different. And I told him this, and it was just a one-on-one conversation with him. Well, then guess what? You don't leave the mafia, and then he really came after me. One of the interesting things was he visited our family in the pastor role, and I had a tough marriage. I don't deny that. We were struggling, and so he was inquiring about my marriage, and so I'm honest for whatever dumb reason, and say, yeah, we're still struggling. So at the close of the conversation, he says, well, if you're going to leave our group, I don't think you should come back to church anymore. So I say, okay, well, I won't come back anymore then. And then the next day, I think it was the very next day, he stands up in front of the whole church and announces that we're excommunicated from the church, and that the reason is because of infidelity in our marriage. And on top of that, he forbade everyone in the church, whether our team members and all the church members that I've been working with for the last several years, just pouring my life out for, forbade them all from seeing us. And guess what? Everyone obeyed. Everyone obeyed. No one saw us. We were instantly alone. And that was the end of it. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, our home church actually stood with us. They were very clued in. They saw what was going on, and they still supported us, and so we were able to stay there. And so when this guy figured out, I'm gonna call him by his name. His name is John, and I can't give you too many details because honestly, right now there's an ongoing FBI, CPS, and a mission agency deep investigations going on about this guy and his family right now. But his name is John, and so when he couldn't take me out, he went after my son. he had a guy at the school who was his recruit, who happened to be my son and his son's teacher. And so he ordered this teacher to begin writing my son and making him a discipline problem, and attempting to get him kicked out of the school so that we would all have to leave the field, of course, because of our family problems. And so, I didn't realize it. I wasn't, unfortunately, I was so clueless. So clueless of everything. I mean, I'm all starry-eyed thinking, here, we're just over here doing God's work, and but my son was systematically being just taken out. He was being systematically emasculated, and I didn't, he would come home so angry, and I'm thinking always just, normal stuff, between a adolescent kid and his teacher, his male teacher, whatever. And anyway, long story short, if it came out that the teacher eventually confessed to being a pedophile and having acted out with kids at the school in his home. And so when I heard that, that's when I knew this isn't normal. And we immediately left. I immediately got my family out of there, took them home, but unfortunately it was too late for my son. He just was in a depression. There's a lot of complicated factors, but he was in a deep depression as a result of that year in school. And when he was 21 years old, he ended his life in a difficult moment. So yeah, it was that trauma. If you want to talk about religious trauma, that was very traumatic. And we didn't know that much about trauma back then. We didn't know that, they knew only a thing they knew about trauma was PTSD with, people who were, in combat kind of situations. So,
yeah.
but now we know. Now we know that trauma, affects us deeply in ways, and so we're still working through it. It's been difficult, really difficult. It was some of the darkest days I've ever lived. But we're getting through it, and my son's okay. I'm at peace with that now. But yeah, it was very difficult. In terms of what has helped me, and interestingly, the path that I've chosen as part of my recovery is getting involved with a lot of people of other faiths, especially with a lot of Muslims, but not just Muslims, a lot of people from a lot of other faiths. And honestly, I haven't taken formal data or anything, but just in my informal observations, I just see the exact same things. I see, really, really good people who are just good to the core in their heart, who can be atheists, they can be, humanists, they can be Muslims, Buddhists, Christians. There's just a lot of really good people out there. And then there's the ones that aren't good, and they're everywhere. Just like, we see in these shootings, they're just people who are messed up, who are out there. And so that sort of helps me to deal with this religious element of the trauma, in that, not seeing it as so religious. I mean, even though it came from a religious source in a time when I was, totally given over to that religion. So in that sense, it was, but at the same time, I'm seeing it as more of a human thing that we see, across the board, and just literally across the board. I'm sure. I've never studied this, but I'm sure that in some of the Buddhist scenes where they have the priests and the boys, things like that. I mean, it's just set up for people who are, somehow, for whatever reason, they become abusive. And it's just across the board. So anyway, that's helped me kind of dissociate it from anything to do with God, and more just a human element of our existence. Oh, I was I was just going to say to answer that question. No, I didn't find anything in, at least in my former faith, that helped me. It could have been just, you know, the baggage from it all. But where I really found the help was going within and understanding myself, what was going on inside of me, who I was and how I was feeling, and, you know, reprogramming myself, reprogramming the way I thought about things that got me into this in the very first place. I found vastly more help in doing that, and doing the inner work, the psychological work to understand myself, as opposed to any kind of faith rituals. Now, you know, revisiting it now when I was going through it, you know, of course, it was so intense. You know, I probably say that I would enjoy those things more now at this stage of the game. But, you know, back then I didn't find it helpful. Just one thing that I'd wanted to say. I don't cut me off whenever you need to.
You're fine. It's internet. We're okay.
Okay. One of the things I really wanted to say was that, you know, so many people, I don't know if Brady and Rebecca and Sherry, if you guys feel this also, but a lot of times I have people, you know, especially my former Christian friends, you know, they see where I am now, and they look at me, and they look at me with pity, and they feel sorry for me, and they say, "Wow, you've just been through so much. I can see why you gave up your faith." And they 100%, you know, attribute, you know, where I am now. They define me based on the trauma that happened to me, and I really don't like that.
No.
You know, the trauma very much did affect me, but it doesn't define me. And
Yes.
yeah, sure, I can tell you that through the trauma, I held on to God, and but what it did allow me to do was to begin to start addressing those nagging questions that I had in the back of my mind, that I, you know, never really let myself ask when I was all in. That's what it did do. It did let me start answering those little knocks on the door of my intellect, and, you know, asking myself, you know, well, you know, is the New Testament, you know, I don't want to get into all the details, but all these questions, you know, that you have, and that's what the result of. That's why it's the lack of answers to those questions that I started asking that caused me to start to back away from my commitment to my faith. It was not the trauma that, you know, destroyed my life or whatever. That's not how it was. So I just want to make that really clear.
Steve, I'm going to head it to you first. Final words for our guest.
Okay, so what I do now is I have a little nonprofit called Salam. I bring people together, just like you see in this picture, old white guys getting together with people of color. And this is where I find so much satisfaction and so much meaning. And so we bring people together. So check out our website, check out our programs. And yeah, thank you.